Biscuitville is a locally owned company. We're not a national chain. We have 58 restaurants, all within a 2-hour drive of Greensboro or Burlington. We started out as a pizza restaurant called Pizza to Go. It's actually started in a bakery, a day-old bakery store that my dad had, and we added pizza, changed the name Pizza to Go, and grew that to 6 before my dad decided, biscuits might be a good idea. He was a flour salesman at the time. It's a business that he inherited from my grandfather, selling flour from mills to the bakery. And we're not talking about small bags of flour. We're talking about train carloads of flour and a lot of it. And he saw these pizza places around, thought that would be neat. So, of course, he added pizza to this bakery, the day-old bakery shop. And then they took out the bread and just had pizza. And then they added biscuits because, he was down in Georgia, and I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but they were doing a pretty good business with biscuits. And he said, that'll be a pretty good idea. So they added biscuits, and my dad thought, this great idea would be having a jelly bar where you walk in, you order your biscuit, step over, and you have 30 kinds of jelly. Well, nobody cared about the jelly, but they did like the biscuits, and we are fortunate for that. But I mention that because we learn by our mistakes. Everybody does, and we do as a company. So we try a lot of things. We see what sticks we continue doing. What doesn't stick, we stop doing. The first Biscuitville only was in Danville, Virginia, and we opened that in 1975. So as a company under the Biscuitville name, we are 35 years old. Our corporate offices are in Greensboro, and we run a warehouse distribution in Graham. Now that's unusual for a chain because most chains sub out their distribution. And we have chose early on to do our own distribution. My dad tells the story that when we had the pizza restaurants, he placed an order for tomato paste or tomato sauce. And they said, sorry, we're out. He said, what do you mean we're out? He said, well, the tomato crop was bad and we can't get any. And Dad knew right then he didn't want his livelihood dependent on someone else's purchasing and having to get it from another distributor. So anyway, he found the tomato sauce that he needed, but from that point forward, we did our own self-distribution. We don't franchise. All of our restaurants are company-owned, which is another thing that makes us a little different. There are not that many restaurant chains out there that are company-owned. We now have 58 restaurants. 8 of them are in Virginia, and of course 50 are in North Carolina, and approximately 1,000 employees. Who in here has been to Biscuitville? Okay. Well, you guys just saved a good 15 minutes off my speech. Now I don't have to take it. Well, we are Southern breakfast. The menu doesn't change. We open up at 6 a.m. I'll just give you the quick basics. Open up at 6 a.m. in the morning, close at 2 in the afternoon, and 75% of our business is takeout. Of that, of the total sales, 60% is drive-through, and another 15% come in at the register and take it away. So only 25% of our customers choose to eat the food in the restaurants. We have opened up approximately 8 restaurants in the last year and a half, and because, at least this summer, we saw some soft sales in our existing restaurants, we decided not to open up any more, I'd say for the next at least year or so, until we see some improvements in the economy. A little bit about Biscuitville and how we operate the company. I like to split it up between the house and the foundation. And you can't have a good house without a very strong foundation. But the house is really what you guys see, so I wanted to start talking about that first. For us, it is about making the day better for the customer. It's how you serve that customer. You want them, when they come for breakfast to us, when they leave, they feel like their day was made better. And that's important because it's not just about biscuits. Yes, we got to have great biscuits, and we do, but it's about that interaction with the customer, the friendly. we use fresh, friendly, fast. I always say fast, fresh, friendly, but really the proper order is fresh, friendly, fast. Customers will continue to come back if you have good food, and they'll continue to come back if you're friendly. But you can be the fastest restaurant in town. If your food's not good, they're not coming back. So fresh for us, friendly and fast is what's important. In a Biscuitville, we have an open kitchen. We make biscuits in front of the customer. So when you walk in, you see what's happening. Now the grill's not right up there at the counter. We do stick the grill in the back, but you don't have walls blocking you off, so you can't see the cook back there cooking. And for us, making those biscuits is a part of the show. That's why they're at the front counter. And I'm reminded by my dad quite often, if he ever walks in and for some reason somebody put a marketing piece right in front of the biscuit maker, he's like, no, find a better place for that. The biscuit maker is part of the show. Our operators are paid on profit share. Their base salary is somewhere around $35,000, and the rest is made up in profit share. The average last year was approximately $80,000 in their profit share, and that's before their benefits. This year, with the economy, it's going to drop down to about 75%. But that, in the way we operate our restaurants, since we're not a franchisee, it's important for us that the operator has a lot of incentive to be profitable. Before we went on this profit share plan, gosh, I think it was 15 or 18 years ago, I think at the time the average salary was around $25,000. And even 15 years ago, that was a fairly low salary. And they immediately shot it up on profit share to about 50. And they did it by reducing their labor costs and really watching their cost at the restaurant, whether it be the utilities, not running the air conditioning all night, since we do close at 2 in the afternoon, or just really watching their food costs and trying to make sure that they do the correct portion size for the customers. Moving on to the foundation. Let's show the branding video. And while he's setting that up, I know some of you guys got here early. On the way in, we had a biscuit coupon for you. That's for a drink and a biscuit, but also a pamphlet that tells a little bit about Biscuitville and another little piece called the Golden Rule. But go ahead. Well, hopefully that video gave you a little sense of what our company is like and is about. Our employees, I think I told you guys we have about 1,000 employees. Of that 1,000, 200 have been with us 5 years or more, and we call that the Founders Club. And that's a pretty astounding number. Our employee turnover rate, the year before last was about 120%. Then the recession hit, and it's dropped down to 70. And I know you guys are thinking, wow, that's a lot of people. And it is a lot of turnover. But in our industry, that's lower numbers than our competitors are running. And on top of that, in a restaurant, and hopefully you guys go to the same restaurant quite often, you notice the same people are there every time. That turnover is happening, let's say, in 10 people in a restaurant, in 2 or 3. The other 7 are there at least a year, if not more. And of course, we have some restaurants that the majority of the crew have been there over 5 years. Management turnover has really stayed consistent. It's about 10%, and that most of that turnover is not coming from people leaving us. Typically, it comes from us just coming to the determination that it's not a good fit between them and the company. And our employees really, they'll tell you this. It's not something I have been saying, but they really feel like it's family. That we have a sense of family, that we take care of our employees, that they take care of each other. We celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, childbirths, weddings. So it is very much of a family atmosphere. And the pamphlets that you guys have, if you turn to page 5, it talks, and I'm not going to read through it, but it talks in page 5 about, our company values of honesty and integrity, respect, commitment, and teamwork. And really, something my dad taught me, that when it comes to running a company, it has absolutely nothing to do about the ingredients that you're using. It has nothing to do about the building you're in. It has everything to do about the people who are making the biscuits and running the company. So we have a training class, and that's my main job in that training class when I speak to them, is to make sure they understand it's about the people. It's not about the ingredients. And I think some of you have probably read Phil Johnston's book about Biscuitville, and he talks about sustainable competitive advantage. And that is, in my opinion, our sustainable competitive advantage. Now, when I was asked to speak, they said this was about leadership, and I did come up with at least what I thought are some lessons learned and things that I try to do when I'm leading the company. And I wanted to share some of those with you. The first one is you have to lead by example. You can't expect anyone in your organization to do anything different than the way you do it. So if you want people to pay in the restaurant, you got to pay in the restaurant. So when I go to a Biscuitville and I buy a drink or a coffee, I pay. Now, every now and then the operator will say, no, you don't need to pay. Yes, I do. Because when the employees see me not paying, then they think it's okay for them to let their friend come in and have a drink. And when I say a drink, we don't have alcohol. For those of you who hadn't been there. But it's, so, and that's just a small example, but really in everything I do, you have to lead by example. Phil Johnston in his book talks about character. And character is about what you do when no one's looking. When no one will find out, what is your action? And that, only you know what your character is like. But that's very important to us. And I'm sure there are some people who think that the golden rule is funny, but we really do believe this. And that's why I passed it out to you guys. It's very simple, but treat people fairly. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Now, my job as a leader of Biscuitville, well, my number one job is to be a cheerleader. I mean, I don't actually make the biscuits. Somebody else makes the biscuits. In our company, I have 3 people that answer directly to me. John Huffman, who is our COO, Chief Operations Officer. Jeff May, who is our Vice President and CFO. And then my assistant, Robin King. I mean, they are the ones who are actually getting the work done. It's my job in the company to be a cheerleader. Certainly, if I see something that's not right, I need to go back through them and we'll talk about it, find ways to fix it and retrain. And a term that I like using to describe that has to do with dogs. Who here has dogs and likes dogs? And who likes to be around a dog that you've seen these mean dogs and all they do is bark at you? Nobody. Who likes to be around a dog that comes up to you and is wagging their tail? Well, it's just a short saying. It's bark less and wag more. But if you can remember that, it can go a long way in leading people, because people, they may follow somebody who barks, but they're not going to be dedicated to that person. And my job is also to, to provide vision. What is the company's purpose? Yes, thank you. And as I told you earlier, our main purpose is making the day better for the customer. But it also has to do with, the growth of the company. Where's the company going? We've chosen to use really more shorter term strategy of 3-year planning. So, when we talk about vision, it's not some real big goal of trying to have 1,000 restaurants in 10 years. It's more like hoping we would have maybe 100 restaurants in 10 years, and we'll come up with 3-year plans to get that done. And for me, it's running a family business like this is really a long-term approach. Our stock is not publicly traded. There's no pressure on me to make this week's or next week's profit goals. So in our decision making, we're looking at what's going to be best for the company in the long term. Running a successful company is also about hiring smart people. I think my granddad used to tell me, he wasn't that smart. He just hired smart people. Well, he was very smart. He was also very humble. But I didn't understand when I was young really what that meant. And it means if you want to run a successful company, you have to hire smart people, because your job is to get things done through others. And it's if you don't have really good people underneath you, it's going to be a problem. And for us, when we're looking at making decisions, it's not as much of an authoritarian decision-making process where I decide what to do and then everybody goes to do it. We really sit around the table in product development, in in looking at different opportunities and discuss those and try to figure out, the best way we can accomplish it, and what are the strengths in doing. What are the opportunities if we do that? What are the dangers if we do that? We really try to run it building consensus. If I do get ideas a lot on ways we need to go, and I'll try to sell my team on that. But if I don't do an effective job selling those ideas, it's never going to happen. The team really has to have buy-in in thinking that it is a great idea, and in thinking that they have a hand in developing that idea, so that they can really hang on to it and implement it. Try to keep up with what's going on in the industry, what are best practices. And in some of my research, I found that having an advisory board is smart. It's really having folks on the outside who aren't tied to your company, who can look at what you're doing and bounce off ideas and give you honest feedback. And the key there is honest feedback. If if it's somebody that's a really good friend of yours that's afraid they're going to hurt your feelings, you're not going to get honest feedback. I do consider Lee a good friend, but Lee's going to tell me when I'm wrong, and that's the kind of guy I need around me. And my wife will tell you, I am wrong every now and then. Another thing my dad taught me is he would say, if you take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. I think one of the best examples I can give on this campus is trash. If you walk around campus, you don't see trash. And I'm sure if Dr. Lambert was walking down a sidewalk and there's trash on the ground, he's going to reach down and pick it up. That's a little thing. But when you show attention to those little details, those big things are going to get taken care of also. And the last thing on leadership for me is really having a philosophy of lifelong learning. I spend approximately 10 days a year in some type of classroom setting, whether it's a seminar or whether it's go to a conference. When I just got back from one in Atlanta, that lasted Monday and Tuesday, where I'm trying to figure out what is either a best practice in the industry, what might be coming up in legislation, what people's thoughts are about marketing, social media. I know for a lot of the students here, social media is not a big thing, but for guys like me who are 47 years old, I have a Facebook page and I hadn't looked at it in a week. So, I'm still trying to learn, what's important to the up and coming market. Something that astounded me that I just learned, and and this question is mainly for the students, but I think everyone should answer it. Who reads a local newspaper every day? I mean, if you look around, there's hardly any kids in here that read it. And the chances are they're not going to start reading the paper at any time soon or in the future. Oh, and also have an executive coach that I meet with about 3 times a year. Do 360 feedbacks. The 360 feedback is where you do surveys with the people who work with you. Dina has participated in it. Our outside vendors have participated, and the whole point is for them to give you honest feedback on your leadership style. It's not something fun to do. You find out that you're not as good as you thought you were. You find out that you got a lot of improvements to make. So the first time I did that, I made what I thought were a lot of improvements and redid it, and just didn't see hardly any movement in that 360 feedback. Doesn't mean I'm a bad leader. It just means I need to work on my leadership style. And that's, being humble and being able to recognize that you're not perfect, that you do make mistakes, and that, that if you are open to it, getting that honest feedback from other folks and being willing to work on it will, in the long run, make you a better leader. Oh, and on the executive coach, I do meet with him 3 times a year, and he's the one who implemented this 360 feedback. So I'm able one-on-one just to sit down with him and tell him what I'm up to, the types of things I'm working on, and the types of ideas I'm having, and he's able to, bounce back his thoughts on how, maybe I should approach those, or, maybe how to do things different. And with that, I will conclude it and move to questions and answers.